it's wax sweaters again. Joe?
Hi.
And me and Glenda. Tonight, we're going to talk about the cars we grew up in. The ones that we can remember anyway, and events that happened. Oh, what's the first car you remember?
Oh.
Yeah, let's go back a ways.
I remember we had an old 57 Rambler station wagon that we went out to Colorado with.
Is that the one you went out to visit your uncle in?
Yep.
That's
First time I ever been in the mountains, and that was spooky.
spooky.
Driving on the roads.
They didn't have the interstate they do now. I remember we went to the mountains when I was growing up. And it was like the hairpin curves.
Yeah. Didn't seem like there was very many guardrails on either.
No. We're talking in the 60s here.
Yeah.
60s and before, but probably the early 60s when I don't know when you took that trip. I don't know how old you were.
Maybe 8.
Yeah, you're talking about early 60s, mid 60s. I remember, first car I remember was some 50s era old old car. It had, it was kind of like that, what do you call it, the kind of dome roof thing, the rounded roof. They didn't have seat belts. They didn't have any seat belts, and there were very few locks on the doors. A lot of times locking the door was pushing the handle down. And I was thrown out of that car. The door flew open, and we were in town. That's the first thing, my first memory, I think, because it was kind of traumatic. Because we were living in town, we were going to pick Clifford up from kindergarten, so I couldn't have been very old. But I remember sliding across that gravel and just hanging on, or hanging over a culvert. But that car threw at least 3 of us out of it before they finally, and then they got a Rambler later on. But it was a push button. I don't know what year any of them were really.
Ours was a push button.
Was a push button. But I'm Janet, when she was just really small, got thrown out of one. And our seat belt was Mom's arm like this. And for years she'd do that. In fact, for years I would find myself doing that. Because there was no thing about car seats or kids not sitting in the front seat. It was just, nobody even thought of that. And so Mom usually had one of the little ones standing beside her in the car, and she'd go like this if she had to put on the brakes. After that, I remember we had a Ford, I think they called them an Esquire or a Squire. Anyway, station wagon. It was one of those panel ones. I think that's the one we took to California. I was 15 then. So, what your parents, did they have that Rambler all the way up until?
No, it blew a rod.
Well, that doesn't ever help.
On Dad coming home from work one time. And we ended up getting a 56 Ford.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, I drove 56 Ford after that.
so he kind of stuck in the 50s.
Yeah, it was early 60s. It's all
Yeah.
all we could afford.
Well, that's true. That's true. I mean, we always had used cars. We never had anything new, but
We had a big Buick one time.
those things were boats back then. Grandma and Grandpa always had those.
That's when they was made out of actual metal instead of plastic.
That's true. You had something between you and that other car.
Yeah.
Something strong. Well, when your mom married Eldon, what kind of car did you guys have then?
She had a 60 Chevy.
Okay.
For a while after they got divorced, she had a 60 Chevy. She bought over in Fairbury. And it was giving her some trouble. She ended up buying a 57, 58 Pontiac. One of my older brother's friends.
Monty or Dave?
Owned it.
Monty.
And after that, it lasted about a year. Transmission started giving her trouble.
Yeah.
And she married Eldon. I was 11 then.
What? I thought you were older than that.
I was older. They got divorced when I was 11.
Yeah, your folks.
Yeah, they got married when I was 15, I think it was.
That was his mother and his stepdad got married when he was 15. And you worked with your stepdad. That's where your first job was.
Yeah. Working the summers.
Yeah.
Oh, when I was 16, I did.
Mm.
In the meantime, I was helping Dave. He run the garbage route. I'd go with him. Throw garbage in the truck, or else I'd go out there. We had a city dump then. I'd go out and collect money for when people come out and dump stuff. And then I'd run a little John Deere push cat, bulldozer. I'd push the garbage into the pit and cover it with dirt.
Now, your brother managed it, or?
Well, he didn't, well, I don't know if you call it manage or not. He was basically on his own unless he needed help or something.
Okay.
And it's,
So he pretty much ran the whole thing. Yeah. It's been a long time since Wymore's had its own dump.
yeah.
In fact, that was before I knew you.
He started that in 70.
I remember you guys used to talk about stuff that you got out of there. Stuff that people threw away. People still throw stuff away. Sometimes the garbage man makes good. Well now, okay, we had that Country Squire, that's what it was, Ford Country Squire. 16 passenger, it had the bench seat, and then it was back seat, and then behind there, it had 2 flip-ups, one on each side. And we overloaded it. We went to Bible camp one summer. And it was, actually we were going down there to clean it up before camp started. It was our church's turn. And we loaded that car. Dad had, I think there was a limit by that time. You weren't supposed to be, I don't know that there was a problem with somebody sitting on someone's lap, but I think there was a limit. But we really had that thing loaded. I mean, there were a lot of laps sitting and people sitting on the floor where they could find a floor. But we made it to the camp. I can't remember, it was about 100 miles or so.
Hauling somebody else?
Well, there was a whole crew of us going down from the church, and Dad and Mom and Dad was driving the main. Well, I think there might have been one other car came along, but Bobby Wilcox, the preacher and his wife was there, and their little boy was just about 4 or 5. And Bobby Wilcox found a garter snake up on the ball diamond and handed it to the little boy. And he comes down to help show his mom. And you can imagine his mother's reaction. She was so mad at him. What are you giving that to my son for? But we had another minister whose kids had pet tarantulas. So, and I mean, it was a family pet, so you just never can tell. People are different. So, but
Yeah.
Cliff and I shared that 63 Ford a 63 Ford Galaxy 500. And you said your first car was what?
My first car
Yeah.
was a 59 Chevy 201K.
The 50s were great, and were nice cars for you. You guys all loved the 50s. 50s models.
Yep.
They were a unique style, that's for sure. After, well, now when I was married to my first husband, we ended up trading, I think it was a 63 in for a Ford LTD. We were always getting used ones, we couldn't afford anything more than that. But for Ford LTD, and that's what I kept that when Angie and I moved up here to Nebraska. And it started going bad, and I went to a dealership. There was a car dealership there, and I traded that. I traded in for a Ford Biscayne. And
No, it wasn't a Ford.
No.
Ford don't make this kind.
well, Chevy Biscayne. Okay, he's going to correct me when I'm wrong. Anyway, it was a Chevy Biscayne, and that they were upset with me because I didn't drive it very far. And I don't know if they had the 3-day law in effect then as they do now, that you've got 3 days to return if it's, but I didn't get very far, and that thing just died, dead. Well, back then they had water in the batteries. And when I got it back there, it turned out that the, what do they call it? Water cells, yeah. They were, it's been a long time since this stuff happened, folks.
I'm drawing a blank.
Well, I do too, a lot of the times. But that was the deal, was that, but I threw enough of a fit. I threw enough of a fit that they did replace the battery without charge. And, which they should have anyway, because it wasn't a good battery when I got it. It was dry cell. Not intentionally, it became a dry cell. So, I think I had that when we got married. And we ended up, you had your Dart. We've had so many cars over the years. Hey, we traded that one in too. He had a Dodge Dart.
I had a transmission rebuilt. A year later, started giving me trouble again. So. Oh, the green Torino.
Torino, yeah, it was a Gran Torino. We had that for a while.
That was a 4-door.
Yep. Well, we had a family, so.
We had a Valari, that one that we gave to Angie.
Oh, that was later, yeah. Yeah, we had that. The headliner. It was coming, it was really hanging low. So we just ripped it out and painted the ceiling. Painted it, and she drove it like that for quite a while. And it was like, no, her car wasn't fancy, but she had one. So then her fiance, before they got married, he came over for her graduation. He gave her a Buick Regal. Yeah, Buick Regal. And she was absolutely in love with that car. Of course, she was in love with the guy who gave it to her too, so that helped. Shall we say good night, Paul?
Hasta la vista, baby. Adios, amigos.
There you go. Adios. We'll see you next time on Ma and Paul Fralin in the black sweaters.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody. We love you.
Good night.
Smile and wave at whoever you see. Be friendly.